Welcome everyone to the City Council meeting for the City of Evans, October 1st, 2019. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson? Present. Councilmember Spear? Here. Councilmember Mortensen? Here. Councilmember Castle? Here. Councilmember Neal?
Present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a recognition of accomplishment for Commander Dan Reynos, graduation from the FBI National Academy. Chief Brandt, if you could come up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Chief Brandt. Appreciate the opportunity to recognize a rather significant accomplishment within our police department. In 2018, I nominated Commander Reynos to attend the FBI National Academy, and he was awarded that a slot. And after an extensive background and batteries of tests, I guess, he was able to selected to attend in July of this year. He attended and graduated session 277 of the Academy. Briefly, what the FBI Academy is, it started in 1935 by the FBI as a means to offer high levels of training for police executives, both nationally and internationally. So currently, the FBI hosts about 1,000 police executives a year in 4 classes, around 220, 250 members each. And they offer training in the area of police science management, just all the top skills required for upper level police executives today. It's a rare opportunity for police. I know it sounds like a lot, 1,000 a year, but when Dan graduated the academy, he now joins the ranks of 1% of law enforcement in the entire world that has achieved this accomplishment. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity for Dan to maybe tell you a little bit about his experience. And he brought with him a yellow brick. And I thought it'd be kind of cool if he could explain to you what that is.
Thank you, Council. First, want to thank you for the opportunity to attend this academy, to let me disappear for a little over 10 weeks and take advantage of this opportunity. I did bring back with me the coveted yellow brick that started in 1981 from the Academy. What the yellow brick is symbolic of is completing not only the academic portion of the Academy, but also their physical fitness regime, which culminates at the end of the 10-week program with running the, let me back up, the Academy is at the FBI Training Academy, which is on the Marine Corps base at Quantico. And so what the program ends with is running the Marine Corps base's obstacle course, a 6.1 mile course on the base, and then ends with a 5K fun run back to the FBI headquarters. And then if you complete that, you come home with a yellow brick. So that is what the brick has become synonymous with the FBI National Academy. So that's what the yellow brick stands for. Chief Brandt completed session 223. You'll notice he also has a yellow brick hanging in his office. So that is what the yellow brick symbolizes.
So with that, Mayor, I was thinking you might come down and recognize his accomplishment. He did get a certificate from the FBI that.
Before I give this to the commander, I'll just talk loudly. There's no microphone here. On behalf of the City Council and the citizens we represent, we couldn't be more proud of you. What a fantastic thing for our city to have somebody do such an accomplishment there. 1%, like you said, it's such a great honor for you to work for this city, for us. Thank you so much for everything you do. One more thing, and he did come to the State of the City, and I made a little announcement. Apologize for butchering your name in front of everyone. I'll get it right from now on. So this is from the United States Department of Justice Federal Bureau of Investigations for Daniel A. Reynos, the FBI National Academy. Congratulations very much.
I was trying to get
Commander, before you go, let me just check with the rest of council, see if anyone has anything else to say. I know Councilmember Neal had asked to.
Yes, I remember when I first met Dan as I guess you'd call it a recruit or in training person with the police department, and he certainly has come a long way, and I think he's made the department and the city of Evans very proud.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks, Commander.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 6, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Your Honor, there's one change. Item 9D is an annexation, involves an annexation petition, but we haven't received the signed petition, so we'll need to push that off till the next meeting.
We're just going to strike it off tonight. Okay.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 7, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the September 17th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 8, old business. Item A, continuation of the public hearing of the first amended consolidated service plan for the North Suburban Metropolitan District. And I will reopen the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item with which council is familiar based on an August 5th work session with Dixie Water, who was represented at that meeting by developer Rod Guerreri. This is a Metro District request that is fairly unconventional. It involves oil and gas revenues and water development plan. So staff is trying to be as rigorous as we can be in evaluating what's being requested. We did contract with an independent financial advisor who looks at Metro District plans frequently to give us their evaluation of this proposal on some of those questions that have arisen. So we're working diligently on this request, but we knew that we wouldn't be ready for tonight's public hearing. So we're asking that council continue this item to a date certain, which is November 4th, at which time we believe we'll be ready for this to be heard by the city council. So with that, Mayor, that's the request, to continue this item till November 4th, 2019.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Since this is a public hearing, before we vote on moving it to November 4th, is there anyone who showed up tonight in the audience who wishes to speak in support of this issue? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this issue? So, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I move to continue the public hearing to consider approval of the amended service plan for the North Suburban Metro District to the November 4th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second to continue the public hearing to consider approval of the amended service plan for the North Suburban Metro District to November 4th, 2019 City Council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 9, new business. Item A, public hearing, consideration of the 2020 operating and capital budget, resolution number 21-2019, adopting 2020 budget, ordinance number 705-19, 2020 budget appropriations. And we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick intro from me, and then I will ask our Finance Director, Jackie Trout, to review the recommended budget. This is the budget that was heard by the City Council and discussed in your work session on September 17th, and was also reviewed by your Finance Committee on September 3rd. I think if you could just start right into the PowerPoint. This is an abbreviated presentation from the one that council saw at the work session. We do think it's important when we bring this to the public in your regular meeting for action that we do have some presentation of the budget. But this is a little shorter than last time, hopefully capturing highlights. So with that, I just always like to start with the high-level messages are that the budget that you have in front of you is balanced, and it's balanced to within 2% of the annual projections out along the 5-year period, which for our purposes, given the ups and downs in our revenues, we think that that's appropriately balanced. So that is the high point there, and then this budget also achieves the goals that we've been talking about in various work sessions and along the way in the areas of additional street maintenance, the community complex roof repair, additional parks mowing so that we can stay on top of that more effectively, additional nuisance and zoning code enforcement, additional traffic enforcement for our police department, and also financial and police evidence security. So that's kind of overall message, but I will ask Jackie to walk through various components so council has a complete summary.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor Rudy, members of City Council. As Jim mentioned, this presentation is an overview to summarize some of the recommendations in the 2020 operating and capital budget. You also have included in your packet our hard copy of the budget book and the line item budget detail for next year as well. Jim alluded to some of the high-level changes in this year's budget. We did go into this level of detail at work session as well. These are the recommended service enhancements included in the 2020 budget that have a personnel component cost to them. The total cost of these additional hours and FTEs to accomplish the service level enhancements that council is striving to do better for our residents is about $560,000. The good news of that is revenue offset is expected to be a little above $400,000. So the ongoing cost for these personnel changes in next year's budget is about $159,000. And again, to recap that, we have a couple FTEs in our traffic unit, full-time funding for both a property custodian full-time hours, that is, as well as an increase in hours of our finance department, an additional FTE in code enforcement, 2 FTEs in park, 1 for mowing and 1 for horticulture, as well as increased hours for our assistant city attorney and a storm drainage engineer to help oversee some of the large projects that we'll have coming in for next year. How that looks in the general fund, we anticipate starting the year with about $8.2 million. Our revenue and transfers in the general fund is about $16.6 million. Our expenditures broken down into the various components that council's seen in prior work sessions. Personnel, about $10 million. Supplies and services for all of our general fund departments, $4.7 million. Transfer out to the fire district per that current IGA is about $524,000. We have a small amount in asset management and capital, largely for the roof replacement here at this city complex. $850,000 transfer out for pavement maintenance, which leaves our total operating expenditures about $16.6 million. So as Jim mentioned, the budget as presented is balanced with about $72,000 remaining bottom line for the general fund, ending with a fund balance of about $8.3 million. We've talked a few times about the minimum target reserve and ensuring that we have a 50% of operating expenditure level. About half of that is held in case we have a downturn in our economy. Also, in case we have a loss of a major sales taxpayer, any sort of natural disaster that we'd have to fund some response for before we had any kind of aid afforded to us, as well as any investment opportunities there. So even with that, and the council taking the approach to ensure we had 50% as opposed to 40% in last year's budget, our available fund balance there is $247,000, incorporating all these changes into the 2020 budget. As Jim also mentioned, that is balanced in the 5-year, with the exception of 2 years. 2022 and 2024, which is still within a 2% of total operating expenditure level. We're considering that as a kind of balanced benchmark at this point. In 2 years, we'll have a lot more clarity as far as what the 2022 budget will look like. Assumptions that we have built in currently, we'll know more information on, and we'll be able to adjust to ensure that that budget is balanced when the time comes. We also have discussed capital projects individually, as council does approve those capital projects individually. I have them summarized here just for a little bit additional information. Total of about $9.1 million of capital projects in the 2020 budget, largely made up of street projects. So you can see in the middle there, you have the Street Impact Fund, our Capital Projects Streets Fund, as well as our Food Tax Capital Projects Funds. And that encompasses the bulk of the road construction projects that we anticipate next year. Everything from 23rd Avenue's extension, starting funding for 47th Avenue widening, County Road 33 improvements, our annual street resurfacing is broken out into those three funds. We've mentioned the roof here at the city complex is that first item. We also have a tennis court replacement at Village Park and Driftwood Park playground replacement being funded out of the Conservation Trust Fund. A cemetery entrance improvement and landscaping project at the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. And then skipping down on the other side of the road projects, we have our enterprise capital projects as well. So about $1.2 million in the water fund, largely made up of the Northern Integrated Supply Project, annual contribution, non-potable system in Tuscany, replacement of our irrigation controller project, and some water demand and feasibility studies there for our utilities. In the wastewater fund, about $1.2 million of sewer line maintenance, solids handling, dewatering projects, as well as some construction on the Ashcroft Draw sewer line. And then lastly, our storm drainage fund has about $1.1 million, and this is starting construction for the first tier of our priority projects in the storm drainage fund. High-level water fund summary. What's included in the 2020 budget is currently our annual, as it's been for many years now, 50-cent base rate increase. There are no other increases built into the water fund rate at this point. We did talk at work session that we're currently working on reviewing each of our utility rates to ensure that we've got proper structure for each of our enterprise funds, as those are required to operate as standalone enterprise funds, and those costs for service need to offset the cost to provide those services. So we have no additional increase built into the water fund at this point. You'll notice our cash fund balance rises from about $3.4 million at the end of this year to $3.6 million for next year. And again, we're looking mostly at that revenue due to development as well. We do have the development units that we're projecting for next year's budget built into all the various funds and the money that should come in from each of those pieces for system development fees. So in summary, for all these funds, more to come on the rate structure in coming meetings. Similar for the wastewater, what's built in on the revenue side is the approved rate structure with the last rate increase that went into effect in 2019. No additional rate increase is projected at this point for wastewater fund, and the cash balance sits pretty consistent from about $7.5 million at this year up to $7.8 million. So that's been a consistent level for that fund as well. The storm drainage fund is probably the one that looks to have the biggest change. As I mentioned, in the capital projects, as we look at the first tier of construction for our high priority projects, we are assuming a debt issuance component will occur in 2020 to help us fund the construction for these projects. So you'll see another income that's a net of the debt payment for next year of about $6.3 million. So the cash balance does look very different for next year's budget as compared to the current year budget. Stable operations there in the refuse fund as well. We have had excess expenditures over revenue the last few years of about $40,000 in that range. 2020 is no different, projecting at about $43,000 excess expenditures over that service revenue. And that cash balance is projected at about $370,000 at the end of 2020.
Jackie, I think you said it, but just to remind council, you will be having much more discussion about the utility rates over the next month or so, and those funds.
Yep, all of those funds we'll talk about in more detail. In summary, the total city budget, at a glance here, the ending fund balance in 2020, at the end of 2020, is about $34.8 million of all funds citywide. So you'll see that total column at the right. So we start the year with about $28.8 million, revenue of $43.6 million, so large amount there. Operating expenditures of 28.4, capital of 9.1, which I just want to pause for a second. I know we spent a moment at work session talking about what a pivotal point this is for the city of having $9 million of new construction coming in next year that is no longer rebuilding, reconstruction from the flood, but this is new, forward-looking, necessary growth and maintenance and everything else that's coming for the city. So that's a lot of projects for next year. Net impact there is a positive $6 million, again, mostly due to storm drainage and anticipating that revenue coming in 2020 that will fund our capital projects for the next couple of years. And again, ending fund balance at the end of 2020 of almost $8 million citywide. So with that, would be happy to answer any questions as it pertains to any of the information in this year's proposed budget. Thank you, Council Member Johnson, for your beautiful picture that we put on the front of the cover of the budget book.
Like, oh.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this item? No one saying anything, no rebuttal. Council questions of staff?
No questions. Well, most of the questions were all answered at the work session.
If there are no questions, I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion. I just want to say thank you. I got to give the state of the city last week, and one of the bright points, there are many bright points, but one of the great things I got to talk about was the balanced budget the city has and how transparent our budget is. And that's all due to you and your staff and the city staff as a whole. So thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot.
I would agree. Every year we get you guys give us a fantastic budget. You guys go over the numbers in thorough detail, and every year it's great. So thank you to you and your staff.
And I'd like to add, thank you for your patience as well, because we have questions and you're very eloquent, and graceful in explaining things to us. So thank you and great job always.
Any other comments?
I just want to say thank you to you and your staff. I know this is an incredible amount of work, and the level of detail that you provide, all while explaining it in a way that everybody can understand, is outstanding. I know that's not an easy feat at all. And I also know trying to manage an entire team of people, which is very large when you're working on a budget, is difficult. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Anyone else? Clerical question for you, Scott. Do we need to do the resolution of the ordinance as two separates, or can you do them all at once?
Do them two separate.
That's what I figured, so thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion on the resolution.
I move to adopt resolution number 21-2019, adopting the 2020 budget.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 21-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. I will now entertain a motion for ordinance number 705-19.
I move to, go ahead. I move to approve ordinance number 705-19 on the 2020 budget appropriations.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 705-19 on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks again, Jackie, for everything you do.
Thank you. Great job.
Next item, item B, resolution number 22-2019, adoption of the 2020 city fee schedule for the city of Evans. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This goes alongside our budget each year. This is our fee schedule that is already incorporated into the budget in our revenues. While there aren't significant changes, particularly from last year, I will ask Jackie Trout to summarize with a couple specific points.
Thank you. Good evening again. As Jim mentioned, the budget process team does look at each of our revenue sources individually, and one of the items tasked by our revenue budget process team is to reach out to the departments to ensure that the fees that we are establishing to provide said services to residents is appropriate and adequate in nature as well. So we do look at a multitude of factors to ensure that that is the case. One of the most driving ones is our consumer price index inflationary rate each year. So we look at that, evaluate whether or not that's warranted or not. There are just a few changes I wanted to bring your attention to. Recreation Day Camp is increasing both the 4-week session and the weekly session by about $15. There's a significant amount of work that is required by staff when there's turnover in kiddos during the summer. The recreation team fees are also increasing depending on the sport of that adult activity. So there's kind of a range in there based on what sport you're signing up for. There's an increase in cemetery fees as it relates to grave space and both opening and closing costs. So those are costly each year. I think we've been increasing them the last couple of years. We've also had a slight reorganization of the fee schedule itself, trying to make it more usable and friendly as residents are looking to find information on the various components. And did want to also mention, last year we did have a comment from council in adoption of the 2019 budget, specifically related to our business license fees. Did want to bring more information back on that. The current recommendation has been $25 for an annual business license. We are recommending that stay at that $25 level going forward in 2020. We looked at about 21 communities that all had a $25 average fee. Couple larger communities in our area actually have no fee. Some of them have a 2-year business license. A handful did have $50 fees. Staff reassessed the fee for that. We're doing more electronically and processing more of that automated, less manual processes in there as well. And at this point, we don't feel like there is any justification to warrant a fee increase. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on the fee schedule.
Thank you, Jackie. Questions of staff?
Straightforward.
Yep, I have no questions. They look great. There are no questions. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 22-2019.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 22-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Item C, consideration of resolution 23-2019, a resolution amending section 7B of the City of Evans Public Record Policy regarding fees.
Thanks, Mayor. This is similar to the fee schedule, but a little bit different because this is a fee that's authorized and governed by state law. Last year, the state legislature passed House Bill 141193 that authorizes the state and also other governmental units to charge for staff work associated with responses to the Colorado Open Records Act or CORA. This is just, housekeeping as we're trying to keep up with state law. Formerly, that amount, the maximum that you could charge was $30 per hour. This resolution, corresponding with the new state law, authorizes up to $33.58. I want to underline as a practical matter, we almost always respond to CORA requests promptly. We always comply with the law, but at no charge. So we don't make a practice of charging residents. Sometimes there is a particularly large request that does require significant staff time, and when that happens, it's appropriate and consistent with your policy and in this resolution that we do charge the requester for that staff time. So all this does is just keep up with the state law and the practice that we've had in the past. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Questions of staff?
Yes, Jim, I'm very glad to hear that our current city staff is providing most of this information to the public for free rather than causing them financial strain to find out public information. Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 23-2019, a resolution amending section 7B of the City of Evans Public Record Policy regarding fees.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 23-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item D is scratched. Item E, consideration award of bid 2019 Ashcroft Heights Channel Improvements Contract. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is completing a commitment or agreement that's been in the works for some time. In short story, the city agreeing with the HOA to complete repairs that arguably were caused by the city's placement of some concrete check dams in a large drainage channel at the western edge of the Ashcroft neighborhood. Council may recall approving an agreement for this work last February, and this is just the contract to get the work going and get this completed before the next rain season, or in time for spring, certainly. So again, the basic idea is we're going to make the repairs one time, and then the HOA will maintain it and have responsibility for the structure forevermore. But I will ask our assistant city manager and city engineer to just give a little more process update on our purchase of the contract.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So this project will basically slow down the water, and that's what it's intended to do. The original design and installation actually sped up the water through the channel, which created the erosion. So we're creating what we call drop structures, and it's basically where the water stops at the bottom and then continues to flow. So in that process, it reduces the velocity, and velocity is what always causes any kind of erosion. So that's the intention. The project was bid. We had 7 bidders. The low bidder was well below the engineer's estimate. The next 2 bidders were slightly higher than the engineer's estimate. The low bidder also had good references and had done similar type projects in recent history. So that's why we decided to select them and recommend the council award the contract. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
I just, normally you have a list of the bidders and what they bid.
I'm sorry, we didn't include that, but we have the second 2 bidders were in the 180 range.
That's
and
it.
the low bidder.
Oh, wait, yeah, it's noted in there.
I believe the bid tab is in there, correct? No.
I'm not seeing it in this package.
Pulp and steel, and
Exhibit
then
C?
it's like towards the
Which page, Alex?
That's the low bid schedule.
Oh, that's the low
But
bid.
the-
It's just the
The
low bid.
low
Yeah.
bid,
I
yeah.
just would, just for transparency, I wanted to have a list of the bids and the amounts that they bid, so that, anybody reading this or seeing this can see that indeed that we are going with the lowest bid. The lowest qualified bid, that's correct, but no, I mean,
That you sent to me.
it's just stating that that's what it is.
That's what she said.
And the staff report does show that second lowest bid.
Yeah,
Want to use them?
and I'm just saying that, normally we do have a list of the
Agreed.
names of.
Let's have them all.
Yeah, normally we
Yes,
would.
and
do-
I'm just going for
we-
transparency
Yes,
here.
I
mean,
understand.
we're talking about open records law, acts and stuff, and I just want to make sure that we're very transparent with the citizens, and this is kind of on the verge of
Understood.
not being.
Apologize for that.
Great point.
Yep.
So I do have a question. I'm looking at what the bid here is. It looks like the cost of the project from an engineering standpoint was approximately $150,000. And they came in with a bid, it looks of $109 109,508, and you guys thoroughly vetted them, that seems like a pretty big discrepancy. You got 109 to 180, and the middle cost was about 150. I
Yes,
just
but
want
we
to make
also-
sure we're not going to get, held up with anything and some surprises where it's going to wind up exceeding the cost that was generally estimated by engineering,
Yeah, we checked them out, and they actually had done recently, in the last couple of years, had done projects exactly like this.
Okay.
And they're a smaller company, so their overhead is less. So that allows them to bid a little lighter.
I just want to make sure, because when you see
Understood.
109 and then 180, you're like, pretty big discrepancy.
Yeah, and that does happen on occasion. Also, it also depends on how hungry the contractor is for the work.
That's good.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments of staff? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to award the 2019 Ashcroft Heights Channel Drop Structures Reconstruction contract in the amount of $109,508.16 with a not to exceed amount of $120,000 to Colt and Steel Incorporated, and to authorize the mayor's signature on the project contract.
Second.
A motion and a second to award the 2019 Ashcroft Heights Channel Drop Structures Reconstruction Contract in the amount of $109,508.16 with a not to exceed amount of $120,000 to Colton Steel Inc. and to authorize the mayor's signature on the project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item F, consideration of ordinance number 706-19, and ordinance amending the city code regarding the offense of criminal trespass. And we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask our Police Chief Rick Brandt to briefly summarize.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, Mayor and Council again. Chief Brandt. This is a staff recommendation for just a quick amendment to an existing ordinance that currently prohibits trespassing on enclosed land and refusal to leave as a class or a second-degree criminal trespass offense. Staff is recommending that we add similar language to trespassing on not enclosed land, open land, without permission, and making that a third-degree criminal trespass. So it's just to clarify the ordinance that wasn't very clear before on open versus closed land or enclosures.
Thank you, Chief. Questions of Chief Brandt?
I just have to say, you have the underline on the B underneath that, what you're adding. I think there needs to be a the between upon. Remains in or upon the premises of another. Whoever's writing the final, sorry, this is in the ordinance. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Under 9.9.2.4.050.
I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, criminal trespass, you have A, which is, was there before, and then you have B, which is what you're adding. And I think there needs to be a the premises of another in there. It just kind of reads a little weird. Other than that, especially being in the neck of the woods that I'm in and have had to deal with trespassing, I am very happy to see that we are adding this to kind of help with the other residents and the businesses that have condominiums and apartments with this. So I'm very pleased with this.
So, Councilmember, would it satisfy your concerns on B if we took out the words in or, so it would read, a person commits the crime of third-degree criminal trespass if such person unlawfully enters or remains upon premises of another?
Like that.
I think in probably still includes it if they're in the premises.
Okay.
So that's why I was saying a person commits the crime of third-degree criminal trespass if such person unlawfully enters or remains in or upon the premises of another.
Okay, so you just want to insert the word the?
Yeah, the premises.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, because remains in or upon premises of another didn't quite.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 706-19.
Second.
Motion is second to approve ordinance number 706-19. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes. Item 10, report, city manager. Thank you, chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind council and the public that the second weekend of our semi-annual citywide cleanup is ongoing this weekend. So good opportunity to get stuff out. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. City attorney.
Two short items. We spent the day interviewing candidates for the assistant city attorney position and have some promising prospects there. And then second, I attended the CML Attorneys Conference this last weekend in Greeley, and it was highlighted by a riveting presentation by our own police chief on the red flag laws that it's kind of difficult to do, but kind of put the fear of God in a lot of the attorneys that were in the room, because there are some real challenges for that, and Chief Brand did a great job on that. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address city council on any item? Seeing none, next item on our list is executive session, but I'm going to put this meeting in recess. We'll go into that afterwards. We have an ERA meeting that I know we have public here, so we will go into that first. So, meeting will be in recess. We will go right into the. I'll call the meeting to order. Sorry, Karen, are you ready? Call the meeting to order. And that's the roll call. Here.
Vice Chair Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Spear, Commissioner Mortensen,
Here.
Commissioner Castle,
Here.
Commissioner Neal.
Present.
Thank you, Karen. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 4, consent agenda. Approval of the September 17th, 2019 Evans Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 5, new business. Item A, consideration of a resolution number ERA-003-2019. A resolution adopting a budget for the Evans Redevelopment Agency for the calendar year beginning the first day of January 2020 and ending on the last day of December 2020. Here from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real briefly, this process mirrors the city process for the budget. We do not have a presentation for you, but Finance Director Jackie Trott is available to answer any questions if you have them. But this evening, we are requesting your resolution to approve the ERA budget for 2020. That's all we have, Mayor.
Questions of staff?
I have none.
None.
No questions of staff. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number ERA-003-2019.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve resolution ERA-003-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item B, consideration of bid of award for demolition of ERA properties.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is following through on council's direction to proceed this year, if at all possible, with the demolition of the properties that the redevelopment agency owns at the corner of 31st Street and Highway 85. We have had significant process ensuring that we know the extent of hazardous materials, asbestos mostly, on the site, and we're at the point where we have a recommendation for you for that demolition. Since there are several components to it, I have asked our Economic Development Manager, Allison Moding, and Recreation and Special Projects Manager, Brian Stone, to give an overview of the work and the process in the bids and our recommendation.
Good evening, Chairman Rudy and members of the board. Brian Stone, Recreation and Special Projects Manager. I'm here tonight to discuss the contract for award of bid services for the demolition of 8 buildings at the Junction property and then the old Randy's site. Demolition of these obsolete buildings will be a nice step forward. We've had the properties for some time now, and not only will it's hopefully kickstart the process for some development, but it really will just help eliminate some of the area from some of the problems and vandalism and things like that that we've seen over the last couple years. In early June, we did reach out to WeCycle Environmental for some abatement sampling. They discovered a lot more asbestos in a couple of the buildings we had originally anticipated. So from there, we reached out and did an RFP on August 16th on the city website and through BidNet, and we actually received 9 bids for this project. The low bid was Earth Service and Abatement, Inc. out of Commerce City with a bid amount of $378,081. We did reach out and check some references on them. They've done similar projects of abatement and the demolition, and had favorable references on that. So that was nice to see. When we were going through the process, we also noticed some other areas of cost as we discussed the sampling of the abatement, but then as we go through demolition, we have to have a consultant on site to make sure that they certify that the removal is properly done. So there's an additional expense with that. Excel Energy, we're going to have remove some transformers and some light poles, so there's an additional small cost with that of about $5,000. And then we're requesting a 10% contingency for the demolition and abatement, just some of the unknowns that we might run into during this project. At the May 21st meeting of the year, a transfer of $350,000 was approved for the demolition of these buildings. But like we mentioned, with the large abatement findings, we're going to need some additional funds to complete the project fully. So we're asking for a budget revision this evening as well, or a preliminary budget revision of $102,839. Like all ERA resources, at this point, it's basically a loan that will be paid back after the development of the property is developed. Staff feels that this is a great step in the right direction and would recommend award a bid to Earth Services and Abatement, Inc. in the amount of $378,081 with a contingency of 10% of the contract for abatement and demolition, along with the preliminary budget revision for the other project needs for this, for completion of this project. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So which buildings are included in this?
So it's all 8. So you're going to start right next to Heritage and go to the north, and then Randy's Diner and Car Wash is also included. So every one of the properties over there is a full scrape abatement and scrape to foundation.
Okay, and including the old
Diamond Vogel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
When are they anticipating they would be able to start the project, and how long it will be until completion?
So with the state of Colorado, there's a 10-day grace period after we award contract, just so they need to come in and make sure that there's any necessary findings that they have prior to the project starting. So the soonest they could start, I believe, is October 16th, they mentioned. And then we said that they had to have a mid-December deadline for completion, and they said that they can meet that.
So does this include the removal of the debris too?
Yes, so this will be, so they'll fence in the area, they'll abate, and then scrape the sites.
We'll expect to see more traffic then with.
There will be some truck traffic during that time, yes. And I don't know what landfill they're taking it to. I know they were initially talking about maybe going to Alt, but they also talked about the one in Keensburg as well.
And this is just down to the foundations.
This is just down to foundations. We did have add alternates in the bid. It came back quite a bit higher. And then with just some of the...
For the asphalt, it's great.
For the asphalt and concrete pieces, absolutely. So we decided to leave that in at this time.
That'd be a vast improvement, I think, for the marketability of the project, and I'm very much in favor of getting it done as fast as possible.
I also think this is going to take care of a few security issues that we have with people that are trying to camp in that area too. So it'll be good to have this out of the way.
Said we already budgeted $350,000 for this, right?
350.
And just, maybe I'm off and my math's not working out right, but if the contract's for $378,000 and you want to add a 10% contingency, which is $37,000.
Yep.
Call that 40.
Okay.
That equals $420,000. We already have $350,000.
So we have the 5,000 for Excel additional, and then we have 31,950, which is the additional for the WeCycle environmental consulting and sampling.
And that's where you're coming to the 102.
So that's where I'm, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Are there any other questions? No other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to award the contract with Earth Services and Abatement Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $378,081 with a contingency amount equal to 10% of the contract or $37,808 that can be authorized only with the city manager approval to address unforeseen project needs. Further, I move to approve a preliminary budget revision to in the amount $102,839 for the abatement, demolition, and environmental consulting for redevelopment agencies' properties.
Second.
A motion and a second? Motion and a second to award the contract with Earth Services and Abatement Inc. in the amount not to exceed $378,081 with the contingency amount equal to 10% of the contract or $37,808 that can be authorized only with the city manager's approval to address unforeseen project needs. Further, I move to approve the preliminary budget revision to the amount of $102,839 for the abatement, demolition, and environmental consulting for redevelopment agency property. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Did you take a breath?
So now meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene our city council meeting and entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move to go into executive session to determine the city's position regarding matters that are subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding the 37th Street Utilities Project pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 subsection E.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Steve, for coming in.
Thank you. Nice seeing you, Steve.
Steve.